Hello, and welcome to Anime Audio Commentary. Today I'll be commenting on episode 14 of Dungeon Meshi. If you'd like to watch along, then start watching now. You know, I don't think it's quite on par with the last opening, but this new one's pretty darn good too. And I do think it's nice that, following up on the previous episode, it's nice that the party hasn't been broken up by this whole disagreement about whether or not to go back. But finally, it seems like we're following up with that other party. I feel like it's been a little while since we've seen them. And more to the point, they haven't really done anything. Like, it seems like they were on the receiving end of those fishmen in a pretty bad way. And I guess more to the point, it seems like they were saved by Lias and company again. Oh, actually, hold on, did we see that? I think I vaguely remember Lias and company pulling them out of the water. Okay, so I guess this is just following up on that. Yeah, wow. You know, I think that is true. It's been a while, I guess. But I guess the point is, it seems like there's some degree of animosity between these guys and Lias and friends, even if it is misplaced. I mean, they're still sort of angry about the treasure that was stolen, even though it was really just a bunch of bugs. And if they knew that, they probably wouldn't care, but that they don't know that is the issue. You know, it's one of those things where I feel like they're sort of not as prepared for the dungeon as perhaps they might have been. And I guess it doesn't help that their food was taken, too. You know, I feel like they should perhaps think a little bit. Their provisions were taken, but not their money, you know. That should say something, you know. They weren't opportunistically robbed. I mean, they were in a sense, but, you know, their valuables weren't taken. They weren't stripped of everything, basically. Now, I don't know that fella's name, but he's got the right idea here. Cabru. Okay, that's his name. Cabru is right here. You know, they should be kind of happy that they're still alive here. You know, other people might not be so lucky. I mean, the whole idea is that, like, being revived is far easier in this dungeon than it would be outside of it, but, you know, even so, death is a very real thing. Well, I guess, you know, death is a very real thing. That kind of goes without saying, seeing as how they acknowledge it. But, like, dying and coming back, like, you know, even though that happens, dying permanently is still a possibility. And that's something you should really watch out for. Although, speaking of things you should watch out for, Yeah, you know, I think that's a rather cunning ploy for these fishmen to sort of set up a fog. You know, that certainly seems to be the case anyways. And you know, even though these adventurers have somehow walked on water via magic, no doubt, you know, I feel like they're still not on an even playing field here with these fishmen. Oh no, this is interesting. Kabru knows. Oh. Oh, that's interesting. A little magic fog that causes people to mistake their party members for fishmen. Oh, that's very dangerous indeed. I mean, that's a good way to get the party to entirely wipe themselves out. Ooh. You know, something tells me that really isn't the only peaceful way to interrupt an incantation. I feel like there are, other ways of doing that. I mean, you don't have to, like, hit them. You could just, like, stick a finger in their mouth or something. Like, I mean, that might get your finger bitten off, but, I don't know. I don't think, like, running full tilt into a kiss is going to be any less dangerous. Frankly, that sounds like a good way to, like, chip a tooth or something. Oh, no, that's a really cool effect, to just sort of have the steam dissipate like that. Ooh. Okay, so that's interesting. You know, it was another group of adventurers who actually set this all up. Okay, so I guess, you know, I guess I sort of naturally assumed this was like the work of other monsters, but maybe not. Though I guess in a sense, these corpse retrievers are monsters in their own right. You know, trying to kill people to, provide themselves with work. That's, rather dishonorable. Wow. I mean, I guess that is ideal from their standpoint for Kabru and his party to catch up with Lias and they were to all kill each other. That would be good for them, I guess, but... yeah. Wow. That is decidedly underhanded. Ooh. Okay, so, like, I can't fault this guy for necessarily trying to bargain his way out of this. But I thought what he was going to do is he was gonna, like, kill his two friends here. Like, you know, they... like, he made it clear, like, they're not dead, they're... oh. Ooh. Okay, man, I thought Kebru was actually gonna, you know, kill the downed guys, but, alright, this is something. He's actually, I mean, willing to kill, which isn't necessarily a good thing, but he's far more honorable. You know, he's not gonna just cut down the guys that are already down. He's gonna cut down these scheming jerks. So that's interesting. You know, the way he talks, it makes it sound like he's not human. The way he talks about killing other humanoids. Alright, so this is something, I guess, you know, Kabru makes it pretty clear that he and his party, they're either intent on exterminating monsters or breaking the curse of the dungeon, which I suppose that's sort of something Elias and company are getting caught up in now. I mean, they certainly can't avoid it if they want to get Fallen back with that whole encounter with the Mad Mage and all that. Man, so if they're just dumping the corpses in the water, I feel like those guys aren't coming back, you know? Ooh. You know, I guess it is kind of nice that we're getting to know these guys, seeing as how they've cropped up a few times, but I'm wondering if maybe an episode or a segment like this earlier on would have been better, just to sort of, I guess, seed the idea that there's a bit more going on than initially meets the eye. So that's an interesting idea Cabru's talking about. The idea that there's sort of like a ticking time clock element towards breaking the curse of the dungeon. Because if the full thing is explored and exhausted of treasure, then nobody will explore there, thus leaving the monster population to grow unchecked, and they'll eventually, spill out and kill people. Well, that is interesting, and it does make a bit of sense. Now, it is also interesting that he's unwilling to loot the corpse retrievers. I feel like there's no harm in doing that, otherwise it would go to waste. It's also interesting that they're eating just regular rations. I mean, I guess, they're not like Laius and Senshi where they would delight in eating whatever new monster they encounter. I guess it's also interesting that the corpse retrievers have pretty high-end rations, comparatively. Okay, so it's interesting that they sort of assume that Laius and everyone else are in cahoots with the corpse retrievers. I mean, I guess they would get that impression from what the boss said, but I mean, it's not really true. Okay. So it's interesting that the idea that there aren't many adventurous elves, that sort of like narrows down who they might be dealing with. And I feel like, this is going to come to a head at some point. Okay, so it's interesting that they can sort of tell by the wording that, it's the work of an elf and somebody who graduated from a magic school of sorts. And I feel like there can't be many elves that meet that description. Ooh. Okay, so this guy would be thrilled, presumably if it's, Laius and the others. It's interesting that he seems to know a fair bit about the party, even though he's only, ever sort of like seen them secondhand. I don't know. Like, I guess from the way he's speaking, it seems to be that there's, like, maybe not a familiarity with them, but a fondness. And, you know, one of those other guys said by their reputation that they probably aren't criminals, so something's going on. Ooh. Okay, so Kabru's really putting 2 and 2 together here. You know, they saw Nemari, who was formerly of Laius' party, and, you know, there were rumors of a disagreement about whether or not to save a party member. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. None of what they know explains a dwarf, but, you know, that's not the biggest sticking point in the world. They can sort of get around that pretty easily. I guess it's interesting that Kabru really does know them all by name. You know, it's interesting, because I guess I wouldn't assume that they were well known or renowned at all or anything like that, but yeah, it's interesting, because they don't seem to be a widely known adventuring party or anything. Ooh, that's interesting. So a lot of dwarves aren't regarded highly. And that's you know, I guess it's just one of those sort of things that happens. You know, somebody has a bad experience with one dwarf and they sort of paint the whole race like that. Yeah, I guess it's also interesting how this halfling has a negative view on Chilchuk, thinking him to be greedy and money-grubbing. And, to a degree, that probably is true. You know, he's certainly not greedy, but you know, now that they get down to it, it seems like the composition of the two parties are rather similar, you know. Humans, dwarves, halflings, Easterners, as they're called. And I guess Shuro's kind of the one person we know the least about, seeing as how he left the party early on and, well, we haven't really seen much of him since then. I guess it is interesting that other people are pointing out that it is a little unusual that he knows so much, you know. That's kind of the impression I got, because it really didn't seem like any of the people he's talking about are, I guess, worthy of a claim where they'd be household names like this. Ooh. Well, that's interesting. I guess that's the root of the matter. You know, he seems to think that they're hiding their true colors. And, you know, I don't think they really are hiding their true colors. You know, not that Kabru would know it necessarily. Okay. So it seems like Laius just had some dealings with shady people that he didn't know were shady. Like, that's not necessarily something that should reflect poorly on him. Wow, that's interesting. I mean, I don't know if I agree with his assessment that they're just sort of indifferent to others. I mean, certainly if Laius was indifferent to people, why would he be going through this whole ordeal to save Fallen. Man. You know, this episode's been very heavy on talking and rather light on action, but there's a lot of interesting stuff to it. Ooh. This might be the prelude to something big. Although the question of what it is... Ooh. Okay. So I guess without the Kraken, given that Lais and company killed it, the sea serpent's probably the big fish in this pond now. Man, when they say serpent, they really mean it. Like, that is a vicious-looking snake. Ooh. And I guess it's time to learn a little bit more about Shuro now that he's shown up. He certainly seems to have some degree of status for people to call him Young Master. I mean, surely these people are all, like, attendants or something like that. I guess this sort of gives credence to what we heard before. You know, he was in love to Fallen, and now that she's dead, he's just sort of out of it. You know, one would think that Fallen dying would be big motivation for him to save her, but, yeah, I guess it's just not in his personality. Alright, so things are getting more interesting. You know, these two parties might be working together now. Yeah, so I guess they might be working together, but it seems like it's going to be a fractious coalition, if anything. Yeah, things don't seem good for Lais and company either. Poor guys. Alright, well that's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, then by all means, tune in for the next one. See you, Space Cowboy.